Hello, my name is Christian, I'm with SEP, and in this video I will show you how to install and configure a backup of OES Linux systems. Step number one is the backup server. For the backup server installation, please check our video store for installing and setting up a backup server. In this scenario, I work with our appliance. So the appliance is an ISO image what you can download and install, for tests like this in a VM or install it on a physical computer. My backup server is called SEP1, and my OES Linux system has the name OES 11-GW 2012. Let's check the packages or the Subsystem Components what we have here on the backup server. It's rpm -qa pipe grep csum, and here we see that we have the backup server package, the SRV, and the csum Novell client. This is something special what you just need for Novell environments, the data mover. To do a consistent backup of NSS volumes, we work with the TSA agents on the system. And to get the files in a consistent state, let me say to our backup stream, we need a data mover between. The data mover has to be a OES Linux system or the SEP csum appliance, because in this appliance we were able to implement all the needed SMS components to let it look like a OES Linux server, and here you can install the csum data mover. Option number two is when your backup server is just, let me say, a native SUSE /11 or a Red Hat or a Debian or Ubuntu, then you can also install the data mover on your client. So let me do here also very quick. Pipe grep csum, yes, and here we can see I installed the client. The client is needed on every system, okay? OES Linux. OES Network is another video. This is OES Linux. On an OES Linux system we need the csum client, and when you do not have an OES Linux license free for your backup server, then install the data mover here on the system, okay? The next step is very important because the SEP csum technology works only with host names, so the minimum what you can do to check if everything is working well is a ping. So it seems my backup server can reach the OES 11-GW 2012. In this scenario I have no name server running. The only thing I did was a configuration of my hosts file. I will show you very quick how that works. In real environments, please do all the entries in your name server and then everything is fine. But in this little test scenario, I have here my hosts file. As you can see, my backup server is able to resolve himself as a localhost computer. This is very important. So do me a favor and check your hosts file that you can see your localhost entry. And I also did an entry with his real IP address, and as I can see here I have a little failure because the long name is SEP app1 and the short name just SEP app. Let's adjust it very quick. Yeah, perfect. And as we can see here as well is the entry for my client, the OES 11-GW 2012. This is the minimum network configuration what you need, that these two systems can talk to each other. It's here the same. I have an entry for my backup server, that the way back is also possible, and he can resolve himself. And the localhost entry is also here. Good. Step number one remember, install the client. What I did was I downloaded the client here. We can do that together very quick. Go download.sep.de. I opened the Linux folder, SUSE, and then but I think 64-bit is the most common, /11, and then I downloaded the client. So there is a little special scenario when your client has a local attached storage. So let me say you don't want to do a backup over LAN, you want to do a backup on a direct attached storage like disk, like tape. This is something what I will explain more in detail in a separate video, but just that you know, when you have a direct attached storage and want to do a LAN-free backup, then you have to install the remote here, the RTS package. When you want to do a classical backup over your LAN, then install the client here. Okay? Perfect. Done. Step number 2. Start the needed TSA agents on your OES Linux system. For that, we make a little journey to the etc opt novell sms. Yes, that's the configuration file, smdrd.conf, and the most important entry is let me check here. Yeah, it's this entry. When you, let me say, just have a file server without groupwise, without eDirectory, then it's enough if you just make this entry: autoload colon space TSA-FS. Okay, here this is what you can see in another video. I have a groupwise installation 2012 on. That's the reason why I did this extension here. And when you have eDirectory running on your system, then make sure that you have also loaded the TSA NDS. So when you take a look in your file, it's maybe, you know, without all these entries. So just go to any position and yeah, type in these lines what I have here. The TSA IF is the iFolder agent. So when you want to do a consistent backup of all your iFolder shares, then you can do autoload TSA IF. Okay, to make sure that, let me say, after you started or restarted the SMDRD service, or let me just show you how restarting of this service works. I think, yeah, it's this command here: rc novell -smdrd restart. And to check if he really was able to start all the TSA services, we go to opt novell. I think it's the sms config -t. Yes, and here we can see that the TSA NDS is successfully started, the TSA FS with the extension, and the TSA IF for iFolder. Perfect. Step number 2 is done. Step number 3 is a very simple thing. We open the Subsystem GUI, go to Components, Topology, think about setting up a new location or put everything here under the local location, the default one. I like more setting up a special location for that. Sorry for that. It's Novell, and then right click, new client, type in the host name of the client. In my case it was OES 11 -GW 2012. Very important, never enter IP addresses here, because the Subsystem Communication Protocol is just working for or is only working with host names, and that's the reason why the name resolution is so important. Platform Unix is fine. Netware is just for OES netware systems, and we have here OES Linux system, and the operating system itself is OES Linux. What we can see here is a tab which popped up after I changed it here to OES Linux, and he wanna know, the credentials, that how to talk to the TSA agents as which user to get everything. In my case, it's the account.admin.sep with my super special password. And now, again, the big question, who is the data mover? In this scenario, both would work, because remember, I installed the CSAM Novell client on the backup server and on the client itself. I use for this test the client as a data mover and agree with OK. He asks me for, do you like to create a new backup job for this client? I agree with yes, because this is the perfect test. Before you start with thinking about task names and change the backup type, just browse into the client, and here we have a perfect view. We see here on the top all the Novell components. When I click on the plus sign, here we have the Linux bare metal recovery option, and then we have the possibility to do a backup of all local file systems. This is more for the Linux part of the OES Linux, and we will start with taking care on the NSS volumes. So please open the directory here over the Novell structure. Yeah, perfect. I can see two volumes. The first volume is for my groupwise server. The second volume is a real NSS volume with files and stuff on it, okay? Very important is, for each volume, generate a separate task. I agree with OK. You can see he changed the backup type to Novell NSS file system. This is very important, because when you do here a classical path backup, you will get all your files, of course, but without trusties. Okay, so this is the magic thing why you have to use as a backup type the NSS file system. Agree with OK, and here in the menu tasks by clients we can see now below the client our first task. Now I generate a second task, browse very quick through my Novell structure here. So the groupwise volume is something what we should take care in a special groupwise task. So for groupwise, check another video, but you can, also do it right now if you want. But to have a consistent groupwise backup, go over the groupwise tab. Perfect. So I have just one volume available. So that means the next thing I have to do to have a real complete backup of my OES Linux server is doing a backup of my local file system, of all local file systems. But there is one thing, because when I open here the root folder media, you can see that the NSS volumes is again selected. So I have my NSS volume in a special Novell task, and now again here. And that's the reason why I do a double click to exclude the folder NSS. That means I have a special task for my NSS volumes, with trusties and everything, and then I prepare right now another task for my Linux file system. Agree with OK. You can see in the source he insert the word all. All is a keyword what you can use for Windows, for Linux, and also for this system here. And in the exclude list we see the exclude of the NSS volume. Decent directories of other file systems is not needed, because when you work with the word all, he goes over all the mount points from your system. And when you want to do also a backup of mounted NFS shares, then you have to check mark this box here. Great, 2 tasks. I think we should start here a little backup with a right click, immediate start. This is the Linux backup task. Backup type full on my test pool. Backup started, and then at the same time, that's the cool thing with SEP CSUM, we can do, multi-streaming. As we can see here, the backup is still active. Another view is here in job state backups, and there we can see that 2 jobs are active at this very moment, our Linux backup and the backup from our NSS volume. Here we have, some views like throughput, like data size. With a double click you can go into the main log. This is very important for troubleshooting, and also if you want to see, if really everything was successful, not just the green state. And yeah, but this is something what I will explain in a video, GUI features, and we should focus now on the backup. There is another very important task. This is an additional feature what you can buy. When I do another backup task of this system, I have this Linux bare metal recovery. I think this is available since years, but we have now a newer version which is really able to do a perfect disaster recovery restore for physical systems, for Linux systems, and it's available since the version 4.2.2.18. Okay, I select this bare metal recovery very quick, agree with OK. You can see here he changed the backup type, enters the right source, and I agree with OK. Start this backup on top. Full. Perfect. This bare metal recovery is also very helpful when you have a virtual environment where no snapshot possibilities are available. Like, let me say, the Open Xen server, ref systems. Maybe when you watch a video in half a year, then there is a snapshot possibility available, but when you have a physical system or a virtual environment where you cannot do snapshots, with SEP, then you should do this bare metal recovery every time, because the restore process is so much easier and you save you and your company a lot of time with this bare metal recovery. You can read more about our bare metal recovery option in our wiki. So let's jump to the main page very quick, and there we have the section disaster recovery, bare metal recovery Linux, and here you can see there is an old one and a new one, and here in this section you can see how this backup works. The backup generates a little ISO image what you can burn on a CD or mount in your virtual environment, and then insert it in a brand new server and recreate the whole Linux part. This is important. It's just recreating the Linux part, not the network part. So that means after recreating the Linux part of your OES 11 server, you have to create your NSS volumes again manually, and after that restore all your NSS partitions on that. But I think as a Novell administrator it should be very easy for you after a successful Linux recovery to make or to generate NSS volumes. So let me see how far we are. Okay, this backup job is successful. Perfect. The other 2 guys take a little longer. Okay, bare metal recovery successful. But bare metal recovery is also another video where you can see how to use it, how to start with a restore, what dependencies, and so on. Good. If you want to do a restore of, let me say, of a single file, the only thing you have to do is a right click on your backup task. So with the filter option, you can also check for backups in the past, or you can, make some filtering options. But I will just focus on do a single file restore now, right click, restore, and then he gives you the possibility to change the save period again. Select the latest backup. Here you can say do a complete backup, a complete restore. This is in case you have to do a bare metal recovery or you lost one of your volumes, then you recreate the volume very quick and do the complete restore of this task. Okay, we will do a single item recovery. Next, browse into the system, and here you see all your files are available. So when I want to do, let me say, a restore of this log file, and maybe also of this one, then I say next, restore to original target path, or you can also say to a new restore target. So here you can select now, let me say, a different volume, a new volume. It's here, media, NSS, and then maybe you have to restore it to the group-wise file system for any reason. Here we can decide do not overwrite existing files in case the files are still existing. We can say overwrite existing files if we know the file is still there but we don't need it anymore. Or create a new version does not work for NSS files. This is just a feature for Linux file systems. So I prefer do not overwrite existing files and always do a manual move or a manual copy from the original file to a temporary directory just in case you need it for, let me say, a later review or something like that. And start. Here in Job State Restore, we can see that the restore task is still in queue because I have just one drive configured. So when you want to do backups and restore at the same time, it would make sense to give your data store another second drive so that you can do backups or migrations and restores at the same time. What I will do now, it's not nice, but for our test it's helpful. I will cancel this running task, and now here I can see the restore was successful after I stopped the running task. And I think when I go now to my OES server, to the directory media, NSS, GW, I think it was, then I have here, because of the file structure, again the folder media, NSS, and here we have our two log files. That's pretty much everything. Thank you for watching this video. If you have more questions to that, feel free to contact our support team. Thank you for watching, and bye-bye.